The Echo Voyager, a state-of-the-art research vessel, was humanity's latest triumph. Built to map the soundless void of deep space, it employed revolutionary technology to record the undetectable, a translation of electromagnetic waves and radiation into audible frequencies. It wasn't supposed to hear anything, and yet, it did. Dr. Erin Caulfield, the ship's lead acoustics engineer, stared at the waveform on her console. It rippled unnaturally, jagged peaks dancing across the screen like the frantic scribbles of a disturbed mind. Her headphones crackled faintly, then emitted a low hum that felt more alive than mechanical. "Run it back," Erin said, her voice tight. Beside her, Kieran Velasquez, the ship's astrophysicist, hesitated. "Are you sure?" The system flagged it as an anomaly. Could be interference. "Just play it." The room filled with sound, not the static she expected, but a series of deep, resonant notes that vibrated in her chest. Beneath them, a faint, rhythmic clicking grew louder, almost like a pulse. Kieran frowned, his fingers hovering over the pause button. "That almost sounds like breathing." "It's not possible," Erin whispered. Space was silent, devoid of air to carry sound waves. The Echo Voyager merely converted patterns in electromagnetic frequencies, yet this was unmistakably organic. "Where did this come from?" Erin asked. "Sector 7-3-A, Kieran replied, pulling up a star map. "Uncharted space, mostly empty. Closest thing out there is the Helion Nebula." "The nebula can't emit anything like this," Erin said, shaking her head. "Maybe a rogue pulsar?" Kieran offered, though his tone suggested he didn't believe it. Before Erin could respond, the ship's intercom crackled to life. Captain Nadir's voice came through, calm but firm. "Dr. Caulfield, report to the bridge. We've got something you need to see." Erin exchanged a glance with Kieran before grabbing her tablet. The bridge was buzzing with quiet tension when they arrived. Captain Nadir stood at the observation window, arms crossed, staring at a holographic projection of the ship's path. "We followed the signal," she said without turning. "It's getting stronger." The hologram zoomed in, revealing a faint outline of a massive structure drifting in the void. It wasn't a ship, not a natural formation, something else entirely. "Is that where the sound came from?" Erin asked. "It has to be," the captain said. "We're picking up stronger readings the closer we get." The structure loomed larger on the screen as the Echo Voyager drew near. Its surface was covered in jagged spires, like teeth jutting into space. Faint blue lights pulsed along its exterior, almost in rhythm with the sound they had recorded. "Wait," Erin said, her voice trembling. "It's responding to us." As the ship closed in, the clicking sound from the recording grew louder, joined by an unsettling whisper-like static. "What's it saying?" Kieran asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Erin didn't answer. Her headphones picked up something new, an almost imperceptible voice, garbled but undeniably there. It spoke her name. Erin ripped the headphones from her ears, her pulse hammering. "It said my name," she whispered, her words trembling with disbelief. Kieran blinked. "What? No, that's impossible." "Check the logs," Captain Nadir commanded, her gaze fixed on the eerie structure ahead. "Confirm it." Kieran's hands flew over the console, pulling up the raw data. The waveform on the screen rippled erratically, like a living thing thrashing against its confines. He zoomed in on the anomaly. "There's a vocal pattern embedded in the signal," he said slowly, "but it's distorted. Could be coincidence?" "It's not," Erin interrupted. Her voice was sharper now, cutting through the tension. "That structure is broadcasting it, and it's aware of us." The room fell silent as everyone stared at the looming structure on the main screen. The pulsing lights across its surface began to synchronize, forming patterns that felt deliberate, like a heartbeat. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," one of the officers at the comm station reported, their voice tight. "What kind of transmission?" Nadir asked. The officer hesitated. "It's not normal audio. It's layered, almost like overlapping voices, but what?" "They're all saying her name," the officer finished, gesturing toward Erin. Erin's legs felt unsteady, but she forced herself to focus. "Patch it through," she said, her voice firmer than she felt. The speakers hissed and a chorus of distorted voices filled the room. They were hollow and overlapping, as if filtered through layers of static but unmistakable. "Erin, Erin, come closer." "What the hell is this?" Kieran muttered, backing away from the console. "Stop playback," Nadir ordered. The voices cut out, leaving an oppressive silence in their wake. She turned to Erin. "Why is it targeting you?" "I don't know," Erin snapped, her frustration mixing with fear. "I'm just an acoustics engineer. I shouldn't even be relevant to whatever this thing is." The captain's sharp gaze softened, but only slightly. "You're the key to this, whether you want to be or not. We need to figure out why." Before Erin could respond, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared as the lights dimmed, plunging the room into chaos. "Status report," Nadir barked. "Something's latched onto the ship," an officer called out. "External scans show tendrils extending from the structure. They're penetrating the hull." Kieran pulled up the visuals, and the bridge gasped. On the screen, black root-like appendages were snaking across the Echo Voyager, embedding themselves into its surface. "Cut the engines," Nadir ordered. "Don't give it anything to pull against." "We're already adrift," Kieran said, his voice grim. "It's pulling us in." The tendrils dragged the ship closer to the structure. The rhythmic clicking from the recording grew louder, reverberating through the walls like a monstrous drumbeat. "It's trying to communicate," Erin said suddenly, her hands gripping the edge of the console. "Communicate?" Nadir echoed. "It's not just pulling us in," Erin continued. "It's scanning us, searching for something." "For what?" Kieran asked, his voice barely audible. Erin turned to him, her face pale. "Memories, thoughts, our voices, it's creating echoes of us." Before anyone could process her words, the ship's intercom crackled to life. A single voice emerged, Erin's own voice. "Help me," it pleaded, distorted and broken. "Help me, please." The bridge froze. "That's me," Erin whispered, her hand trembling as she reached for the console. "But I didn't say that." The intercom hissed again, and another voice joined the chorus, Kieran's. "Don't let it in, don't let it take us." "That's enough," Nadir shouted, her composure cracking. "Seal the comm system. Shut it down." "It won't matter," Erin said, her voice hollow. "It's inside now. The ship. It's becoming part of it." The lights flickered, and for a brief moment the walls seemed to ripple, as if the ship itself was breathing. "Captain," Kieran said, his voice shaking. "We need to get out of here, now." "Agreed," Nadir said. "Erin, can you isolate the signal? If we can disrupt it—" "I'll try," Erin said, though her confidence was fading. She turned to the console, her hands trembling as she worked. The waveform on the screen grew sharper, more erratic, as if the signal was fighting back. But then it changed. The jagged peaks smoothed out, forming a new pattern, one Erin recognized instantly. It was her own heartbeat. Erin's breath caught as the waveform on her screen pulsed in sync with her heartbeat. The jagged lines on the display no longer looked random. They were deliberate, a pattern that mirrored life itself. "It's using us," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "It's translating us into whatever it is." Captain Nadir stood frozen for a moment, then snapped into action. "Erin, can you sever the link? Shut the whole system down if you have to." Erin's fingers flew over the console. "I'm trying, but it's adapting. Every time I isolate the signal, it finds another pathway through the ship's systems." The tendrils outside the Echo Voyager continued to writhe, anchoring the ship to the alien structure. The lights flickered more violently now, and the rhythmic clicking sound was joined by a new noise, a low, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate in their bones. "What's that?" Kieran asked, his voice shaking. "It's a harmonization," Erin replied, her eyes wide. "It's tuning us, the ship, everything." "To what?" Nadir demanded. Before Erin could respond, the intercom crackled again. This time, the voice that emerged wasn't hers, or anyone else's. "Come closer," it said, smooth and otherworldly. The words were layered as though 1,000 voices spoke in unison. "You have heard us. Now you will join the song. The lights dimmed completely, plunging the bridge into near-total darkness. Only the faint glow of the console screens illuminated the room. Erin's screen displayed a new waveform, complex, fluid, and impossibly intricate. It felt alive. "Captain," Kieran said, his voice trembling, "the structure's pulling us in faster." Nadir turned to the helm officer. "Can we fire thrusters? Anything to break free?" "Negative," the officer replied. "The engines aren't responding. It's overriding all systems." Erin felt a chill crawl up her spine. "It's not just overriding the systems, it's absorbing them. The ship's becoming an extension of that thing." A sudden, sharp vibration rocked the vessel, throwing everyone off balance. The hum reached a crescendo and the walls of the ship began to shimmer, warping like liquid. "Bridge to engineering," Nadir barked into the comms. "What's happening to the hull?" No response. "Engineering, respond," she shouted again, but the line was dead. Erin clutched the console as the walls around them rippled, the metal appearing to melt and reform like organic tissue. The air grew heavier, the hum now resonating within their very minds. "It's changing the environment," Kieran said, his voice barely audible. "It's making the ship like it. We can't let that happen," Nadir said, her voice steely. "Erin, if you can't sever the connection, we're scuttling the ship." Erin froze. "You mean we destroy the ship?" Nadir said firmly. "We can't let this thing spread." Erin hesitated, but another violent shudder snapped her back to focus. Her console displayed a series of override commands, fragments of code written in a language she didn't recognize. The system wasn't hers anymore, it belonged to whatever was inside the structure. "I'll try one last thing," Erin said, her voice resolute. "But if this doesn't work, do it." As Nadir nodded grimly, Erin began isolating the ship's power core from the rest of the systems. Her fingers danced across the console, every keystroke a battle against the encroaching alien influence. The hum suddenly stopped, replaced by a deafening silence. "What just happened?" Kieran asked, his voice breaking the stillness. Erin stared at her screen. The waveform was gone, replaced by a single message in perfect clarity. "Thank you for opening the way." A sharp, piercing sound erupted through the ship, a frequency so high it felt like it would split their skulls. The bridge dissolved into chaos as crew members clutched their ears, screaming in pain. Erin collapsed to the floor, her vision blurring. Through the haze, she saw the tendrils outside the ship retract, pulling the Echo Voyager toward the structure. The pulsing lights across its surface now burned brighter, casting the void in a harsh, unearthly glow. In her final moment of clarity, Erin reached for the emergency destruct sequence. Her hand trembled as she pressed the final key. The ship's alarms blared, and a calm, automated voice announced, "Self-destruct sequence activated. 10 seconds to core detonation." "Everyone to the pods!" Nadir shouted, dragging Erin to her feet. "There are no pods left!" Kieran yelled. "It's too late!" As the countdown reached 0, the last thing Erin saw was the alien structure, its spires opening like the petals of a massive, nightmarish flower. And then, the signal stopped. A week later, a passing deep space probe picked up a faint, rhythmic clicking sound from Sector 73A. Its log noted an uncharted structure drifting in the void, glowing faintly. Embedded in the signal was a voice, layered and distorted. It spoke a single name: Erin.